Remember we said we took Chris'
Okay.
portrait?
I'm sitting here. We go.
Hey Chris, the hat would
we
fit
can't.
you.
Yeah, it would. Again, this is Ancient City Steampunk Minions present dun, 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 guns, gadgets, and gizmos.
Oh my!
They can.
They can. Okay. You have myself, Chris Arendt, better known as Professor Von Arendt. You have Thomas Galvin.
H.G. Wells,
You have R.J. Foster.
otherwise known as Dirk Gaster.
You have Rocky Sawyer.
Special guest.
Special guest.
Special guest.
Right? Now, what we're going to talk about here, we're going to fly through this slideshow just so we can reiterate what we did yesterday. But we're going to show you our experiences with steampunk. We're going to try to pass on some of our knowledge as much as we can. And we want you guys to be kind of interactive with us today. So ask questions. We really want you to ask questions. And then, of course, dun, 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 the raffle, where we're going to raffle off some items. Okay?
Today's still left over. One certificate for a replica of a Farnsworth from Television's Warehouse 13.
Not that particular
Not this
one.
one because it's been autographed to me. But it will be an exact replica of this one that will make noise and light up. So, yeah.
Oh, hold on.
So yes, you will go home with this certificate signed, and I will get your information, and you will get it in the mail.
Okay, and we're raffling all of the stuff that we're showing you here today. Unlike yesterday, we were only raffled off 2 items.
What?
Mr. RJ, you're not going to raffle anything off. You don't have.
I raffled mine off.
Oh, that's right. You raffled yours off yesterday.
My bracelet went yesterday. Sorry.
All right. So what I have? No. We're not getting. No.
I have a spring of death here, and I will use it.
We have one handy dandy steampunk Star Trek-esque phaser. We then also have what every beginning steampunk needs. A Nerf Maverick. Okay? So we will be auctioning, or not auctioning,
Raffling.
I was raffling. Okay. So this is myself when I dress up, or one of my personas. I am Chris Arendt. I make one-of-a-kind weapons. I do custom accessories such as hat pins, plates, brass items that get put onto leather items such as a Morse code table, you name it. If it comes in brass, I can figure it out or I make it. I also do fake tin types, and what I mean by fake tin types is making an original tin type is a very dangerous and poisonous way of killing yourself. As a matter of fact, photographers really, during the Civil War, could potentially poison themselves because they dealt with very hazardous chemicals in order to put the plate into a state where they could put it into the camera and take the picture. So what I've done is I've created a safe way that the pictures look almost, but not exactly, like a tin type. A tin type is a picture like you used to take with a camera, but instead of putting on a paper backing, it's physically on a tin media.
If you go back to the booth back there for the steampunk area, there is a small photo album, leather photo album there that has some of his tin types in it, so you can see them.
And some of these people actually have gotten some of my tin types as gifts, etc. So I make those. I have been doing not necessarily steampunk, but various forms of cosplay reenacting for over 20 years. I've been making my own things for that period of time, if not longer. I started out, much like most of the people in this panel, getting a box of Legos and figuring out how to make spaceships or what have you on my own, or tearing toys apart to see how they worked. And I've just been doing that ever since. I've had that curiosity that went in and has grown as time goes. What are the things that I make? Well, I make guns. And some of the guns I've made are the one with from there.
Sweet.
And then I've made this rifle. This rifle is based on the 1960s 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I took an original picture with original dimensions and used that as a concept to get as close as I could, but making it as steamy as I could. There's certain elements of the gun that you will notice that are from the 1960s, such as the buttstock, the front, and the spare tank. What I did was I took those elements and then I steamified it, or steamed it, or steamied it. Okay? Phasers. Old series Star Trek phasers are some of the easiest things to do because you look at the brass that you're given and you'll use that as your base, and you will start seeing as you look at these brass pieces what they could be. I'll take Rocky's backpack here. Okay? Rocky found this really cool vase.
Wow.
Okay? It was a brass vase. Okay? Looks like a bumblebee when you flipped it up. And that was what I told him it looked like when he got it. Okay? He took that and created a pressure chamber for his jump pack. Took beds, or bed tops, I'll let you.
These are top of the brass bed. If anyone else found it, the top pieces. That was actually the piece of the bed itself. This part here, was a small lamp. One of those little adjustable lamps that get, for your bed, or you'll see in your hotel sometimes. That was the cover for it. It's all on a frame, and that's just a wood frame, few screws. It's not overly complex. Now all the webbing that's all ex-British stuff from the 50s, and it's relatively inexpensive. And then just adding some of the other pieces. A particular nice note on this one is the fact that all the brass actually was reclaimed out of a Cracker Barrel that was being remodeled. One thing underneath is, if you can find inexpensive or broken
Musical
pieces, that's a trumpet piece underneath on the bottom.
So it's taking these parts that you find and saying, I can make a machine gun out of it. This particular gun here started off with a single piece that RJ brought back from Tennessee for me. It's this single piece right here. And RJ goes, I like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Like is a light word.
Yes, like is a light word. Obsessed might be better.
I watch it at least, and I'm not kidding, the minimum 30. So if I'm working, I have it playing while I'm working.
He said, here, Chris, I've got a couple of brass pieces that I saw that are looking really neat. You know what I like, go for it. And that's how I work. I find out what the person likes or what the person's interested in, and then I build the weapon appropriate to them. That's why I make custom weapons. So in RJ's case, he liked 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I took the 1960s movie, and I started looking. One of his guns is a Nemo gun that I made for him, okay, which is this. And I inlaid N for Nemo. It lights up.
Awesome.
Okay. This is his pistol. Now Rocky said RJ said he needed a rifle, so I took the rifle from the 60s and built that. So again, you start looking at these pieces as you go to recycle centers, as you go to thrift stores. We've given you, by now, hopefully all of you have seen the Steampunk on 40 Days, or you've stopped and gotten the thrift shop list. $40, excuse me. You've gotten the thrift shop list. You'll start going to thrift shops, and you'll start seeing brass pieces or copper pieces or plates or pots or what have you, and you'll start seeing things in them or seeing their potential. And that's one of my things that I want to pass on to you guys, is see the potential in the objects that you find.
You will become a raven.
Yes.
You will see a tiny little bright piece sitting on the ground, and you're like, hey, what's that? You look it up and go, hey, I could use that for, right into the pocket it goes.
Now, does that mean you have to make everything out of brass? No. Okay, I'm going to use my flight pack as an example. My flight pack is actually made from a couple of things. These are fan blades, wooden fan blades from a ceiling fan. Perfect for using for flight packs, for making wings, what have you. Okay? I drink tea, so I had a Japanese tea canister. It has a whole bunch of Japanese writing all over it. Looks rather mystical, looks rather scientific, so I use that as a pressure canister for my fuel. Lightning discs. Lightning discs can be your friend. if used appropriately. Much like anything in steampunk, you don't slap a lightning disc on it just to slap a lightning disc on it, okay? Put it to good use, make sense of where it is. Old lamp pieces. I also use Christmas horns. These are the nicest things that you can use for exhaust engines if you're going to do something small. They're cheap. You usually find them about $2, $3 a piece in thrift stores. Days after Christmas, you'll find boatloads for 50 cents. I always grab them out of the bin and just throw them in my junk pile. And as RJ and Rocky can attest, I've got tens of thousands of bins all over my room that I use for my making. Rocky is even worse than I am. But you start collecting these things and you'll start sorting them into types.
To put it into a term, we are up to our ass in brass. It is all over the place.
Okay. So my gizmos that I make, well, as part of me making these weapons, I started expanding on what I like to do. I would need a piece that I couldn't find. No matter how hard I would try, I couldn't find it. Okay? So I started investigating how to etch brass. And I found I actually like it. Okay? And people like the stuff that I do. I make gorgets, I make pins, I make hat plates, I make shoulder boards.
He makes small medals.
These little medals that we
Little
all
medals. It's just little things that you'll find that you get these little doodads that you have no idea what the heck you're going to do with. Well, I'll make a medal out of it. Okay? Medals are fun. Okay? But what do you need to do to start off? The best thing that I can tell you to do is, since I don't have any handouts to give you today, go out on the web and look up under the Cowford Wiki, Gun Running 101, which is made by Jennifer Parker, Antisocial, or Gun Running 102, and start with a Nerf or start with a water gun, okay? Don't try to get to this level. This will come, I promise you this will come. Start with a Nerf, okay? Everybody does. But there's some things that you need to do for that Nerf to make it look good and to work. So you can take, by going and get some of these tutorials that we posted, you can take a basic, this is a basic Nerf Maverick, and turn it into that. Okay? Ooh. Alright. Next thing I'm going to suggest, get this book.
That is your builder's Bible.
This is going to be your builder's Bible. It is not that expensive. It's under 20 bucks. You can find it on Amazon, or you can order it direct from Thomas. Okay, Thomas is
Not me.
Not this Thomas here.
Thomas Williford, BruteForceStudios.com.
And he is making another book that's strictly for the younger ages, but it's a similar sort of book. Thomas will take you from not knowing anything, not knowing where to find your parts, how to take clocks apart, what to do, what not to do, and go all the way to the beginning, or you can find it in your local library.
And it is absolutely hysterical to read because he has little anecdotes, stuff that's happened to him. You'll be in tears while you're trying to put this stuff together laughing.
Give them the title.
Pardon me?
Read the title off.
The title is Steampunk, Gears, Gadgets, and Gizmos.
Imagine that.
A Master's Guide to Creating Modern Artifacts. Okay? When I first heard of this book, and I'm not trying to sell the book, really not, I thought, I don't need that. I even told RJ, I don't need that.
I got it for Christmas.
He got it for Christmas and started going through it. Okay? And he goes, dude, you really need this book. And I'm like, whatever, I don't need it. I got the book, or I looked at RJ's. He came up to visit, and I looked at it, and I'm like, okay, I need the book. So, if anything, get this book. All right? Things that you're going to need. You're going to need screwdrivers. Got to take stuff apart. Going to need pliers. Going to need vice grips. Going to need wire snips. Coping saws. Optional. Hammer. Definitely a hammer. You got to be able to smack the stuff and crack it open. Okay. Drills. Any type of drill is good, but I like a variable speed. Recommended tools. Dremel tool. Now, Dremels. This is very important. Do not go with the cheap Chinese import at Hobby Lobby. Okay, I said this yesterday and I'll say it again today. Because the cheap Chinese import from Hobby Lobby will last you 2 weeks and then it will have a emotional breakdown and quit working. I can't handle this. I'm going to explode.
Just a note, my journal tool is 20 years old and still running fine.
I've
Lots
got
of
one
things
that's
we go-
over 15.
Lots of things we go cheap. Very rarely do we go brand name. This is go brand name.
This is a go brand name. You will not go wrong. And if you can buy the best, they come in different kits. Okay? Buy the electrical powered one, not the battery powered one. The battery powered one does not have enough RPMs and enough horsepower to do a lot of what you're trying to do.
And they have variable speed ones too, so you can adjust your speed to what you need.
And you don't need everything all at once. You can buy bits and pieces as you go, but get that good base kit if you're going to start making stuff. Other things that I find handy are files and a mini anvil. You can buy a mini anvil at Hobby Freight or Harbor Freight for about 15 bucks. Okay? Or you can find them at flea markets. Okay? Now, what do I use? What materials do I personally use? I use brass, copper, leather, only if I have to. If I have to, I will outsource it to RJ, because that's what you do when you start making things. You'll find that you like making something and you really hate doing something else, or you're really not that good at it. That's fine. Find your maker friends or get involved in the community and start sharing things, because there's going to be stuff that you like doing, you love doing, and there's going to be stuff that I can't stand to cut another damn leather template. Or I can't find X, Y, or Z. You know, Rocky, I need this. Oh, well, I got this. Yeah, Rocky goes to Wood's Garage and finds it for me. Okay? Wood. I love working in wood. Wood is probably the easiest thing to begin with in all of this. Okay? Cloth, glass. Glass is a bit of an advanced topic, though, when you're in a making sort of situation. Materials that I say to avoid. Okay? Guess what? Plastic. Okay? Even though I tell you to go with the Nerf on the first thing, I'm going to tell you, avoid plastic. Use it sparingly, because plastic, no matter how well you paint it, will still look like plastic. Okay? So places that you can find out about things. Where do you find out how to do these things? So now I've got you interested, hopefully. Okay? Finding your local steampunk group. And there's steampunk groups all over Florida. Okay? I'm from Jacksonville. We've got a local group here in Jacksonville. We've got people from St. Augustine, but he comes up. Central Florida, Indian River, Tampa, Miami, Tallahassee. If you can't find one, go on the internet and you'll find one.
Or contact somebody from those groups,
And
tell
they
them where you
should
live,
know.
and we should probably know who it is, and we'll put you in touch with them.
Yeah, and we all kind of share in all of these things. When we find honey holes, we'll say, oh, go here, this is a good place to get this sort of thing. Okay? Internet, Facebook, Steampunk Empire and Brass Goggles are good places to get pictures, get ideas, etc. Your local library, I can't stress this enough. Your local library doesn't get used as much as it should. Okay? But your local library is probably one of the best resources out there, because they know when you go and say, I want to be able to know how to look at a steam engine, they will know or have a general idea where you can look in a library. If you ask them the right questions, they can either find the book or help you understand what you're actually doing and refine it. Would you agree with that?
One thing I'd add too is, especially for everybody now, you're all strapped for cash. I know we all are. If you don't have the money to buy a book, interlibrary loan. If your library doesn't have a copy of the brute force book, okay, you could ask them to buy a copy for their collection. Steampunk is very big right now with librarians in the state of Florida for teens. It's part of the theme for the summer reading program. They may have that book, so check there first to save yourself a little bit of money. Evaluate the book and whether it's something you want to buy long term. If they don't have it and they don't seem to want to buy it, there's a thing called interlibrary loan that does not get used enough. They can get a book for you from any library in the state and from out of the state. I've gotten things from the Library of Congress before. So that's another resource. Don't be limited by what your local library collection may have.
Right? Other places to find out things. Believe it or not, Tandy Leather. Tandy Leather has resurrected itself and pushes steampunk big. They have local classes to teach you how to build hats, how to build gear, etc. Matter of fact, RJ is one of the teachers down in Orlando that teaches the classes.
I don't work for Tandy, but what'll happen is to piggyback off of them, one week they'll teach a basic bracer class, how to do basic bracers. And then if they tell the people, say, next week, the guy who does the steampunk stuff is going to be coming, you can bring that basic bracer and we can steampunk it. Or if you want to do it Western, you can go ahead and just do that on your own or whatever. And I'll come in the next, that way they're still doing getting their word out. I just come and help them accent the thing. But it was a great class, it was a lot of fun.
Another place to potentially find out about these things are your local craft stores. Hobby Lobby, Joann's, Michael's. Now, with that said, you've got to understand that Hobby Lobby, Joann's, and Michael's are not specifically geared towards steampunk. They're more of the mass market, produce it, have 50,000 versions of the same thing, sort of thing. So if you need something that fits into that genre, like I need a whole bunch of gears, simple gears, then that's a good place to get that stuff. Some of the magazines they have are good, I mean, it's iffy, but you'll learn to look at the magazines or the books that they have.
I actually think this was in Michael's the last time I went in there and said, honestly.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, what's in print? Okay, there's a couple of things. 1001 or 10,000 Steampunk Creations by Dr. Grimm. It's a good book to just get an idea to look at pictures. Inspirations. That's all it is. It's just a picture book, a pretty picture book. Steampunk Gears, Gadgets, and Gizmos, I've already talked about. Steampunk Adventurer's Guide. This is the new book that's coming out this year or next year by Thomas, the same gentleman that does Gears, Gadgets, and Gizmo. And it's geared towards teens and kids mostly, is my understanding from Thomas last time I talked to him. Okay, another one is Steampunk Accessories. It's got a couple of projects mainly dealing with jewelry, but there are some other accessories like goggles and everything like that. Okay? Before Thomas comes on, I do want to give you an important safety tip. Well, a couple of important safety tips. First safety tip, and RJ will bring this up again because we're just redundant that way. This is the spring of death.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay? This is what is inside a clock that runs a clock. When you get a clock that you're going to destroy, it's going to look like this. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That much metal is in one of those little tiny canisters. One of these.
It's not even.
Right here. It's not even in the canister. It's under a tremendous amount of pressure. When you take these clocks apart, be very, very careful when you take them apart, because that spring has the name of spring of death for one good reason. It will slice you open. Okay? Thomas goes out in the other room and yanks them. Or RJ, I mean. Okay? I put on a heavy jacket, welding gloves, and a face mask before I take those off. And I'm being deadly serious, because they will fly everywhere. And it will scare the bejesus out of you when it does, because it makes this horrible whang sound. Okay?
It won't come out pretty like that one. It'll come out this way.
Okay? Second safety tip. Well, it's more of a dough tip. Okay? I could have had a V8 moment. When you get these parts and you go to these different places to buy these parts, before you junk anything, please, and Thomas even goes into this in his book, please research what that item is, what it's worth, because it could cost you a lot of money. Thomas went and found, as an example, and there was somebody else on an earlier, or Rebecca actually had a similar experience. Thomas went out to a flea market and found a clock It was the busted insides just in that condition of the one in front that's is still together for like $5. Okay?
Gears, goody.
Okay, took it, he bought it, brought it home, and started taking it apart. Took it completely apart. Then the bad news came. Instead of the 19th century mass-produced clock that he thought it was actually an 18th century handmade clock that was worth over $2,000.
Oh, man.
Okay, so before you destroy anything, make sure you know what it's worth. It might only be worth $5, that's fine, destroy it. Okay? Or if it's a candlestick, candlesticks are a dime a dozen. Okay? But if it's something like a clock, make sure you know, I can't stress it enough, where it came from. It's providence, as it were. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Thomas.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas Gallivan, aka H.G. Wells, owner of the Time Machine, out there in the middle of the hall. I'm from Central Florida, the Winter Haven, Legoland area. We build things there too. And
Lego builder, got it.
I started out as a costume maker for movies and stuff like that, and then got into replica prop making. I've been doing this for 25 years, but if you count me making a lightsaber out of a Christmas wrap paper tube, wrapping blue construction paper around it, putting on my cowboy boots. Yay for Bespin! Running around. Oh, I was Luke Skywalker for many, many years. So I've been doing this for quite a while. I grew up in the pop culture region. Region, area, time period, era. I saw Star Wars in the theater. Yes, I've just dated myself.
Awesome.
And loved it. Was completely hooked. Believe X-Wings did exist. Wanted Luke and Leia to come visit me in their X-Wing. Grew up with Transformers and G.I. Joe and the Super Friends on TV. Was completely hooked with those toys. Bought them nonstop. Got what I could persuade my parents to see. It's funny going through the toy store and hearing the same lines a 5-year-old said that I said. I just want to show you this, that it has come to my attention that this should be in my possession. That's all. I'm telling you I want it. And of course, Ghostbusters was another highlight of my youth.
Oh, yeah.
And so with that pop culture, I started to make costumes.
Awesome.
These are some of my earlier concepts. My Beetlejuice suit was a white tux that I put masking tape on and then spray painted black, peeled the masking tape off. Instant suit. Very crunchy. Wasn't very movable, but it worked well. When I got to college, I made my costume project was a Starfleet uniform. Phantom of the Opera. Now what you can't see under the mask was that I spent the previous night applying latex makeup to model the Broadway version with Michael Crawford. And I slept in the makeup overnight and then put the mask on the next day and did all the touches. So they're like, oh yeah, you're Phantom, what of it? And I'm like, I'll put the mask back. And for at least a year of my life, I swore I was Roger Rabbit. Again, I'd never seen anything like that. These were ski bips, so again, very hot costume. So, had a lot of fun with that.
We suffer for our art.
Then I learned about these wonderful things called conventions. And well, yeah, I went to a few Star Trek conventions, but then when I came down to Florida, I started going to MegaCon. I was like, wait a minute. You mean I can wear a costume and it's not Halloween? All day long? This is fantastic. So of course I started to branch out. Jack Sparrow, Agent Smith from The Matrix, and Wolverine. This was actually my second set of clothes. My first set were buying dollar store ninja swords and holding them between my fingers. I moved up to actually bits of aluminum about 1/8 of an inch thick, cutting them with a Dremel. Again, the cutter tool is my favorite tool I use for everything. Mounted them on wood dowels and I kept them in my jacket, so I went in and then brought them out so it looked like they were coming out of my hands.
That's cool.
Other costumes that I got to make, Mr. Freeze, Ash from the Evil Dead series, and the Rocketeer. Mr. Freeze was a labor of love. At that point, it was my most expensive costume to date. The dome alone was $400.
Whoa.
It was in a ooh. The dome alone was $400. It was an acrylic doll case because I didn't want glass on my head, and so I wanted to make sure it cut down. It came up about 3 feet high, 2 feet wide. So I had to build a collar. The collar was made out of styrofoam, layered, then cut out, and then paper mache, then bondoed, and very secure. And it sits on Velcro. It looks great, but I can't hear a thing, and you can't hear me. I have 2 fans in the back that are run by batteries that I flip switches so I get fresh oxygen, because without the air movement, you start to, freeze it down, freeze us down. But it also, that's the only place I hear, so everybody sounds like they're behind me. So luckily, my wife is my handler, and she's like, oh, Mr. Freeze this way. Like, photograph this way. Ash, my very first chainsaw was nothing more than a Tupperware case, Tupperware lid, and cardboard wrapped in aluminum foil. Rocketeer, I started to get a little bit more adventurous. I built the jackets, built the pack. My flag in the background is just your normal American flag, but I put very thick wire in it, so it always had a permanent wave in it, so I could hold it. It could look very patriotic, so it's always waving, so it wouldn't just sit there flat. And moving on also in the costume world, I'm also a Ghostbuster in the Central Florida Ghostbuster, me and my wife. Sin City, Poison Ivy, again, Batman influence very much in my life. And finally, Scooby-Doo. You gotta go with classics. Luckily enough, I married into a family that also loves to play. This is my wife's brother and his girlfriend, and we were the whole Scooby and the gang, and for last year's 2012 MegaCon. And one judge's favorite, so we got to go for free this year. So very cool. So we had a lot of fun with that one. So I always feel a good costume is nothing without a great prop, and so that's where I started getting my prop making. My Rocketeer pack is styrofoam shaved down, paper mache, and then there's a battery in it. I first started out with a 12-volt lantern battery. So after about 3 hours, actually the first pack that I had, it was just the straps, and by the end of the day, the pack was down. It would pull down. I finally put aluminum harnesses in it so it would just hook my shoulders so it wouldn't come down. The Hardigan badge was sculpting, and these are hair barrettes that I just colored. And finally, I worked my way up to the Farnsworth. Farnsworth was a lot of fun. I went to a great source called the Replica Prop Forum. How do I do this? Where do I get the parts? I definitely recommend it. It is a great site. They had a complete list. Here's your Farnsworth buying list. So it was great. I actually designed the faceplate in Photoshop and then took it to a local trophy location, and they were able to engrave it for me. So cool. Get it done that way. Other props and things. Again, my cooling tanks for Mr. Freeze, my Ghostbuster props. My Gigameter is one of those little light toys inside a hand mixer. Ecto goggles, nothing more than welding goggles, $5. And this, my Ghost Trap, is a Romex electrical box, a 4-switch box, flipped over, piece of plastic on top of it with a handle, and then just aluminum tape. My Ghostbuster Proton Pack is a wide variety of things. I tried to follow the directions, but it was actually too complicated for me, so I said I'm going to go simple on it. It's a plywood base that I cut out to make it a little bit lighter, laminate it with Luan so it's got the rigidity. The thickness is made from styrofoam, 3 layers of 1-inch styrofoam with, again, the Luan on top of it. A cake pan, 4 washers, reflectors behind the holes. That way I don't have to light it up. You take a picture of me with a flash, anything that has a reflector on it is going to beam back the light and look like it's lit up. Cool. So any pictures that way. The bumper is a Hot Wheels racetrack. Nope. Cool spring cut down. And again, nothing more than electrical Romex boxes flipped oversized. I get round ones, square ones, 2-inch, 4-inch. And then shampoo bottles for my knobs. And the electrical box for my proton wand. And the tip is only made out of a flavor injector out of Walmart. And it all lights up. You go to any advanced auto parts store and you say, hey, pimp out your car, look at these cool lights. And it even comes with a button so you can test it. Why change it? You keep the battery pack in it, put the button on your thing, and it already lights up for you. All you gotta do is change the batteries.
Sweet.
Which is a whole bunch of little dime batteries, the small ones.
Yep. Now, while going to all these events, I started to notice a growing movement. Something I had never seen before, something very creative, something very earthy looking. And I'm, excuse me, sir, what the hell are you? Come to find out, this is steampunk. And I went, oh, I gotta get into this. So it just looked too cool, meeting up with people like RJ. So I tried to go to the heart. What's gonna be my contribution for steampunk? So I went to what I thought was the original sources, being Jules Verne and H.G. Wells. So, golly, what could I build? Should it be an airship? No, that's too big. Can't fit that in the house. How about a submarine? Ooh, yes. No, can't fit that either. So that's not going to work. So I think I went with the time machine. Again, based on my Hollywood inspirations, I went with the time machine from 1960, directed by George Pal, and I said, hey, this is something I can work with. And I said, gosh, if I break it down, it's just nothing more than a chair on a table with a dish and some elements. So, all right, okay, so I need a time dish. What could I use for a time dish? I had no idea. So I went with a satellite dish. I found a place, they're not easy to come by. This is the fiberglass kind. I just went around to some local places trying to find one. And I went to a gas station. I said, hey, are you using that satellite dish? They said, no. I said, can I have it? They said, yes, absolutely free.
Wow.
And they even offered to transport it back to my house on their tow truck because it wouldn't fit inside my Ford Focus. They said, you keep all the metal, recycle it, I won't charge a thing to dismantle it. So got that for free. Next thing I need are the engines. I was like, ugh, well, I don't really know what they are, but it looks a whole lot like a laundry basket. So if you look at the time machine, it's 2 laundry baskets on their sides, capped with Tupperware dishes. That's all they are. I'm sorry the picture came out so blown out, but Walmart $2.50. Next I needed the control console. Again, by this point I found a website that talked about all the enthusiasts who built them, and they said a 9-inch PVC pipe was perfect for this thing. So I went to a local plumber store and I said, hey, you got any scrap 9-inch PVC pipe? They said, no, we don't have 9-inch. We got 10-inch. It was free. I was on my way to work. I was wearing my suit. I worked for Omni Hotels at the time. I'm out there cutting off a hack with a hacksaw, 3-foot piece of my suit, trying to get ready to work. So, running out of time. The next part I was going to need was the stand that held up the light, the time dish in the back, and that to me just looked like some simple brass lamps that I got at Walmart. $15 each. The lights console on the top. Again, working for your hotels do pay off. These were the room service ketchup bottles. So of course it was free. So I learned for asking for things, or sometimes maybe not asking for things, can save you a lot of money. So beyond the parts list that I just went over, other things that I used were glass chandeliers from Home Depot. A medical scooter is its base, so of course you've seen me rolling around on this thing. That was one of the major priorities. The original version just sits there. That was not an option for me getting in and out of conventions. I needed wheels, and I figured a medical scooter was the perfect base for that thing. It's all sitting on a plywood base, and a doorbell is actually my gas button. It's on the handset.
Sweet.
Took 15 months to build the time machine. Now, not 15 months of solid construction. 15 months of, hey, I got an extra 25 bucks. Go get my lamps down. Or I need to solve this problem. Or I need to wait for someone who owns a router so I can clean it off. It helped me going this slow actually let me troubleshoot. So that way I literally built from the ground up. Building it bit by bit, working out problems, and solving what I needed to solve. And because I had no real plans, I literally, once I had the deck, I had to literally redesign it as I went along so I knew how the parts would fit. The only thing that really came into play were the engines. Now I had a whole assembly that was completely square, so the engines were perfectly parallel to each other. Well, that didn't work because the railings come in at an angle, so it pulled my engines apart. So I actually had to rework the back piece, which is a strip of aluminum on Velcro, which holds the 2 pieces together. All right, so I can't do everything on my own. I knew nothing about glass. My brother-in-law is a glass maker in Corning, New York, so
wow.
He helped me tell me what I needed to do. So if you use the sanding bit on, well, not sanding bit, those stone bits for your Dremel, and keep pouring water on it, you can drill a hole through a piece of glass. It takes some time, but it works. I know nothing about electricity and making this thing run. My other brother-in-law is an electrician. He welded, and I sent him what I wanted to do, what parts I found, and he would send me back very, very basic schematics that I could follow. And of course, once the reveal happened, it was a magical experience. We took it out. It finally appeared at our local Halloween event in Winter Haven called Ghouls Night Out in 2010.
Awesome.
Later, it would show up at MegaCon in 2011, and that was the first unveiling of it. And I got to meet a lot of people here. Actually, a lot of the Jacksonville people. Got to befriend most of you. Jennifer, I remember you from that day.
Yep, it was great. It was a great
It was
day.
a wonderful day because they were like, "Oh, it's the time machine." So it definitely
There's Jennifer right there.
Oh,
Yep.
look. Yeah.
got to meet a lot of wonderful people that day. And then they also got to go to Dragon Con and be in the parade, which was a wonderful experience till we got to Baker Street. Now, if you've been to Dragon Con, you know most of it going down the main street is flat. Actually slightly downhill. It helps out with the battery power. Well, when we got to Baker Street, it's a 90-degree turn and it goes downhill very fast. I looked at Jessica. This has no brakes.
Uh-oh.
So we had to get out and slowly carry it down the hill. Trying to do our parade waves. And also being in the time community, we're good friends with people who make the time machine DeLoreans. So wonderful people. Took a great shot of a time collision. Dude, you came out of nowhere. And I'm always improving on it. Again, I've upgraded the machine about 3 or 4 times every time it's dismantled or brought out. Something breaks. It happens. You just got to live with that. I call it my Lucas project. It's never finished. Then I'll sell it to Disney. And I get to meet wonderful people in the steampunk community. I get to meet the enthusiasts, and it's been recognized. It's has its own Facebook page, and it's also been